Hello and welcome to episode 9 of the Gorgie Boys podcast with myself, Graeme Duffy, here to talk all things Heart and Midlothian Football Club as we look forward to Hearts being back in domestic action tomorrow. I generally should not be as excited for the Premier Sports Cup game, but I generally am. And to help me talk about that, along with many other things, I've got a special guest on tonight. I'm sure you'll recognise him. He is one half of the fantastic Perth to Paisley podcast. He's not paid me to say that. It's just true. Along with his fantastic host, Daniel McIver. Again, he's not paid me either. Currently, they are on episode 201. Their next episode will be 202. And on YouTube, they have 494 subscribers because they are that good. It is a delight to welcome Adam Kennedy. Adam, thank you very much for joining me, mate. How are you?
Yeah, good. Thanks, Graeme. My pleasure to come on. I'll be sure to send you that money over in the post for your kind and complimentary words. But yeah, I also share that kind of same optimism, that same excitement. I feel like kind of a young lad ahead of Christmas. Like it's Christmas Eve and everybody's out just, I don't know, down the boozer or singing carols. But yes, Hearts are back. Granted, not in the circumstances that we'd like. But the competitive action starts that wee bit sooner, so there's something to gain out of it at least.
Yeah, I mean, I wish it was European football. I think we all do, but just to be back at Tynecastle, me and my lad are going tomorrow. I know that you're not going. We will talk about that later on, but how are you feeling ahead of tomorrow?
Excited, and I was going to say nervous. I'm not really. I am in terms of the outcome. Obviously, you look at this and it should be, with all due respect to the teams that we're playing, it should be 12 points out of 12. But that being said, there have been a couple of scalps in recent seasons from Premiership sides. So I think we can approach this with an air of caution. But that being said, it looks as though Hearts have done their hard work in the background over in Spain. They've played a couple games, not reading too much into the results, bar obviously the emphatic 8-0 win over East Kilbride, which has then got everybody really excited. So it seems like our preparation has gone pretty well, which is something that couldn't be said this time last year, heading into 24-25. But actions speak louder than words, so it's go time from here on in.
Yeah, we do have quite a lot to talk about. We're here for an hour or so. We do have quite a lot to get through. But before we actually get on to talk about Hearts and obviously tomorrow and a few other things, I have to ask you, mate, about the Perth to Paisley podcast. I'm a massive fan. I think you probably know that by now. You and Daniel do a fantastic job. I love the podcast. I think we all do that watches it. And, I mean, one of the things that I love the whole thing, but what I like is the bit at the end with the quiz. Because I think like most folk, you and Daniel are quite competitive. And what I really love, I've not got a quiz for you tonight. Trust me, I've not got a quiz because I couldn't.
Thank God.
But I mean, you and Daniel are very competitive, and the bit that I like is at the end where you do the "Who am I" stuff. Because I sit there and I kind of think at times, even though I follow Hearts for about 38 years, I sit there and think, I can't think who that is. I don't know how you guys think of all the stuff that you do, but how did the whole idea for the Perth to Paisley podcast come about in the first place?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for the kind words. Secondly, I don't know really. I mean, the only Hearts podcast that was on the go at the time was Scarves Around the Funnel, obviously with Laurie Dunsire, Mark Donaldson. And this was before they'd got Ryan McGowan and Scott McIntosh to speak about Hearts on a weekly basis. And it was actually Laurie that had put McIver and I together because Hearts women were a separate entity from the men's team. Obviously now it's all amalgamated under the same kind of business or the same club, but previously Hearts women were a separate entity, and they were actually looking for people to do their social media, and they'd asked Laurie if he knew of anybody, and he basically recommended Daniel and me. So we hadn't met each other prior to kind of linking up to do their social media. And it was only about the second game I think we did. They played Kilmarnock away at Rugby Park. And McIver can't drive. I can. So I'd agreed to pick him up, and we'd obviously drive down to Kelly, do the game, come back up and whatever. And we did the game. I think Hearts lost 1-0, if my memory serves. And just as we're coming back up the road, you know what it's like. You're chatting about all sorts in the car.
Yeah.
And I said, there's only really one Hearts podcast on the go. Perth Paisley was my Hearts blog at the time. And as much as I like writing, it's far easier to say what I want to say sometimes rather than scribbling it all down and then uploading the file and whatever. So I basically kind of put forward the idea to Daniel because he'd said that he'd had some like audio experience. He knew how to edit a podcast. I don't, and I still don't. He does all the editing. I do the socials, and that's basically how we work things. And he basically agreed to come on board, and yeah, been doing it ever since. So, so much so that Hearts women basically like broke it off with us. Hearts eventually bought the women's team, and then basically when kind of Anne Budge took the reins, he and I was going to say were forced out. That sounds terrible, but there wasn't positions for us. So we just kept on, just doing our thing and talking about Hearts. And here we are, over 200 episodes later. It's led to features in 442. It's led to features on Open Goal, Sports Sound, Sports Scene, 5 Live. So it's gone places that I could never have even dreamt when I started. So yeah, it's thanks to Laurie really, and it's thanks to McIver for, I don't know, taking a punt would probably be the appropriate phrase.
I was going to say, I mean, you probably couldn't have imagined it going as popular as it has, but I mean, there's a lot of Hearts podcasts out there. They are all very good and they all deliver something different. But I think when you do a podcast, you've got to try and you've got to be balanced, but you've got to be honest as well. And what I like about you and Daniel and all the other podcasts as well is if it has to be harsh, you will be. And I've seen you get angry on numerous occasions. I'm pretty much, I think most Hearts fans will agree with you. Daniel tries to be the the laid back, but he can get angry as well. But I just love the balance that you two have got. It is very, very good, that dynamic.
It's a bit like your average Jambo, and they've got an angel and a devil on either shoulder, and they try and look for the pros and cons simultaneously. I say that like I'm probably a glass half empty than I'm glass half full. So yeah, I think you're right. If something's there to be said, then you're as well saying it. But listen, the only thing is, sometimes you make predictions and you're made to look an umpty if they exceed your expectations or don't quite live up to them. So that's just part and parcel of being a football fan, I guess, rather than just a podcaster.
Be honest, mate. How much work goes into that quiz that you guys do? Because honestly, some of the quizzes that you guys do are fantastic. But I keep talking about the Who Am I? I think is my favourite segment on that. It is brilliant. But you, I mean, no offence, but I don't think you've got a lot right, to be honest.
I know, because this is the thing. I give McIver like decent ones to guess. He gives me boys that play like 2 or 3 games, and I'm like, I've never even heard of half these people. But no, I kind of put it forward to him. I think we'd gone into like our 3rd season or something. And I'm not gonna lie, like it was an idea that I'd lifted from some other podcast that I'd seen do a Who Am I, and I thought that's actually quite good because I think we spoke about the Romanov era, like because we obviously were growing up kind of through that, and the fact that we once had 76 players on the books basically speaks for itself. I mean, it's a crazy time. So, in essence, we thought we could try and do like a Who Am I and guess who the former Hearts player is. Some obviously you remember quite fondly, others you don't remember quite as fondly. So that's perhaps the beauty of it. And some you've just frankly never heard of, and then you actually question yourself. You're like, have I been following this club for the past 20 odd years? But that's just him to me, I think, rather than the other way around.
Yeah, to be fair, there have been some that you've done, and I've even kind of thought, I genuinely can't remember this player playing for Hearts. It's crazy.
No, it's baffling. I mean, he's evil like that. He really is. Because I think I don't know. It depends. To answer your question, the quiz really varies. Like there's times where you spend like a good wee while on it. There's others where you just kind of you just churn out whatever you think on the day. Like, they'll come to me at strange times. I'll just be like driving, I don't know, like on a roundabout, and then something, so up like a player will pop into my head, or like a question, or you lift stuff from other podcasts that are far bigger and better, and they don't really care what you have to say. So yeah, it varies really.
Yeah, well, don't worry, there's no quiz tonight because I generally can't be bothered. On a Friday night, I couldn't be bothered doing one up.
No,
but
thank God, that's a relief.
We will talk now about our club, Heart of Midlothian, who do have a game tomorrow. Now, we've got a few things to talk about. One of the first things to talk about, though, as well as the fact we have new players tomorrow, we have a new man in the dugout. So Derek McInnes was appointed on the 19th of May on a 4-year deal following the sacking of Neil Critchley on the 26th of April. Now, I know that we're obviously in the group chat and that, Adam, but what was your initial thoughts when you first heard that our main candidate was Derek McInnes, and then when he was appointed?
I'll be honest, I had my reservations a little bit about Derek McInnes. It's funny, my mind kind of changed on it a wee bit. I was asked by 442 if Stephen Naismith were to leave, who would you want to see get the Hearts job? And my answer then was Derek McInnes. Whereas when Neil Critchley was sacked, we weren't really in any grave danger. I mean, we could have potentially been sucked into a basement battle, but not really. I think Liam Fox deserves enormous credit for that, by the way.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I kind of feel as though the McInnes appointment was maybe one too late. And when it first came out that it was between he and John McGlynn, I was probably favouring John McGlynn more, just because of the fact that he's obviously done a phenomenal job with Falkirk. He plucks players from kind of lower levels and turns them into capable footballers at the particular level that he's managing at. He loves Hearts first and foremost. He wasn't given a fair crack of the whip the first time around when he was the manager, dealing with, horrendous circumstances, all things told. And I kind of felt as though he'd earned the right to then become the Hearts manager. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm completely disregarding Derek McInnes, because I'm not. I have secretly admired Derek McInnes for a good wee while. I think he did a phenomenal job with Aberdeen. Granted, he should have left Tawdry maybe a wee bit earlier than he did. I was very surprised that Kilmarnock managed to convince him to come to Rugby Park when they were, not even championship leaders. They were basically struggling up against a part-time team to get out of the second division. But he took them from championship football to Europe within, a couple of years. I think he's just a very experienced manager that knows what he wants, that develops players. I mean, the fact that he's basically plucked players to play for Aberdeen, and then they do something that Hearts haven't done for ages, as far as I'm concerned, and that's get good money for their players. Something which will hopefully change through Jamestown. But I just think he's very shrewd, very astute, and he says all the right things as well. I mean, I think his first couple of press conferences, it's a job that he's obviously been after for quite a while. Going by what he's saying, it's an opportunity that I think I was going to say he's surprised to get. I think he's pleased at getting. He's obviously looked on at Neil Critchley getting the job, what with Jamestown, and thought maybe that could have been me. Thankfully, now it is him. So hopefully he can kind of get those results and basically just get us back to winning ways. Essentially, build Hearts up from what was a disastrous campaign last season.
I know from listening to Daniel McIver that he is not a massive fan of what managers say. He's always said that it doesn't really matter what managers say after games and stuff. But listening to Derek McInnes' interview when he arrived at Hearts on Hearts TV and listening to what he said the last few weeks, I just think he gets Hearts. And what I love about Derek McInnes is pretty much every press conference he's had, he's talked about the demand of Hearts. Now, I'm not going to have a go at Neil Critchley because I think he tried his best, but I just don't really think he got it. But I think Derek McInnes, as you spoke about, he's got the experience. He knows what it's like to manage against Hearts at Tynecastle. But every single thing that Derek McInnes has said, and I know that talk's cheap, it's what you do on the park, I know that. But I love how Derek McInnes has come across with every interview where he's talked about the demands of Hearts, about knowing that the fans' expectation, what kind of Hearts side they want. And I know a lot of people will say, look, it's just words, but I genuinely love what I've heard so far.
No, I'm in that exact same boat. I think he will be the type that will want to put that into practice as well. I don't think he's just spoon feeding journalists and saying what the fans want to hear. I genuinely believe that he wants the best for us and wants. I mean, I loved what he said as well about the fans paying their hard-earned money. He wants people to be looking forward to come to the games. I mean, you're probably the case in point, you and your boy tomorrow, with going to Tynecastle Park. You're looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to watching it. And I just hope that we're not left disappointed. I also think there's this kind of, I was going to say snobbery, but kind of this dismissive attitude really with regards to his play style. But I think at his peak, when he had Aberdeen kind of pushing, consecutively finishing top 2-3, hammed in year after year, I actually thought the football was better than most people give it credit for. He had pace in the wide areas. He had a proven goal scorer in Adam Rooney, who bagged for fun, and obviously we're hopeful that a certain someone can prove that guy for us again. And he just made players better. So I don't get the kind of dismissive attitude and the snobbery towards his play style, because ultimately the facilities and resources that he's going to have here are greater, certainly, than they were at Kilmarnock, and probably greater than they were at Aberdeen, maybe even on a par at worst.
At Aberdeen as well, he had to rebuild every season as well. And I think what I really liked again about his first interview at Hearts was when he said that teams enjoy coming to Tynecastle and we need to stop that. That's something I think that to me is something that was music to Hearts fans' ears, because I think too many teams have come to Tynecastle recently and they've kind of thrived off the atmosphere. That's something Derek McInnes wants to change. And that is a big thing, because I think your home form at Tynecastle's got to be good. Our home form last season wasn't overly great. That's something I think Derek McInnes will change. And given what I've heard so far, and again, I know it's only words, but given what I've heard and I've seen so far, and you've just mentioned it there about the playing style, I genuinely think we will see an attack-minded Hearts. Now, I was looking at the last few games. I looked at the last few games under Derek McInnes at Kilmarnock, and he played 4-4-2. And all you've got to do, we'll get to the players in a minute, but all you've got to do is look at the players he's signed. He's signing players that have got something that we've lacked for a while. It's pace. Pace out wide, pace up front. He's trying to change that style. Now, I hope we see it tomorrow, but I agree with you. I actually think Derek McInnes will come in, and I think the style of play will be a lot better than folk think it will be.
Yeah, I certainly hope that's the case. I mean, I'd feel pretty confident that will be the case. I also think you mentioned it there about him saying that it's been too easy to come to Tynecastle. I do agree with that. My kind of worry and my concern is that, it's like you mentioned kind of how angry I get, and I do. But
it's justified a lot.
But I try not to when I'm at the game, because I think ultimately it helps nobody. Like, I think it takes two to tango. We need that relationship between supporters and players to be wholesome again. We need to be backing them at every hilt, rather than kind of a stray pass comes a knocking, and before you know it, everybody's up in arms. Or the only time I really want to see our supporters angry is at officials, because more often than not, they deserve it. At our own players, I think we have to show them that support, particularly when we've got so many new faces. Because I often hear ex-players say that it's ultimately sink or swim at Hearts, and we don't want players to be, drowning before they've even kicked the ball for us.
I know that our board takes a kicking at times, and sometimes I think it is justified. But how much credit do they deserve for getting Derek McInnes in? Because for once, for a while, it feels like the right appointment.
I think it's probably the first time in Anne Budge's tenure, which granted is coming to an end, where the fan base have kind of unanimously gone, yeah, okay, I can see what you're doing here. I think that's a sensible appointment. I think it's exactly what we need. It's not one of these risks that we've had in the past. It's a safe pair of hands. And I also think that there's been the parallels, isn't there, between obviously Tony Bloom and Union Saint-Gilloise, where they've taken domestic coaches, and then that's kind of been their first couple of appointments before they go for the unknowns and the unheard ofs. So yeah, he just seems to fit the bill, and I think for once, or for the first time in a long time, the fan base have pretty much united behind the manager and gone, yeah, okay, you deserve this job. We're happy to back you.
It's a good segue that, because you mentioned Anne Budge. As we know, she will be leaving Hearts come December. Again, she gets a lot of stick from a lot of Hearts fans. What do you think her legacy will be, and do you think it is the right time for her to step away?
I'll be honest, I think it's probably a wee bit overdue. That being said, look, I am probably one of the more critical Hearts fans, but I can't default Anne Budge's efforts in keeping the club alive, first and foremost. Building a new stand, which granted took a bit longer than we all anticipated or wanted, but is up there with one of the best in the country. I think for as poor as it's been on the park at times, off the park, we're probably in the best place that I've ever seen Hearts, because again, we mentioned the madman Romanov. Yes, he brought us 2 Scottish Cups and some players that, let's be honest, Hearts shouldn't have signed in a million years, but he very nearly killed us off. So it's thanks to Anne Budge that the Heart is still beating. And ultimately, I don't think she's made any decision to Hearts' detriment intentionally. She's always wanted what's best for Hearts. Granted, she has made mistakes. We're all human. We all make mistakes from time to time. Nobody's perfect. She's given it her best. And ultimately, I think what we can say is she's left the club in a far greater place than when she initially took over. So for that, she deserves credit.
I absolutely agree. I think off the park, you are right. We're in a far better place now. I think in terms of the football side of things, she basically said when she came in that she doesn't know a lot about football. And at times, I think you could see that. You know, I think she held on to Craig Levein for far too long. I think she helped him with a lot of things. I mean, it was basically Craig Levein that employed Ian Cathro in the end, and that failed. Then Levein ended up staying too long as manager. He was then director of football. He tried to do both. Didn't work. And then I think as well, when you bring Daniel Stendel in, when the man that is showing Daniel Stendel around is the man you've just sacked, I don't think that's a very good look. So I think she does have a lot of things against her, but you're right.
Even as well, sorry, Graeme, you mentioned Daniel Stendel there. The reappointment of Robbie Nielsen as well was a strange scenario where we hadn't really known if Daniel Stendel was even going. It was basically, here's a new manager, but our current manager is still in place as far as we're aware. So, yeah, just some bizarre decisions, but equally some good ones. I mean, I can't fault, like the Skyline restaurant, the hotel. Like we make good money. I think our merchandise is far better as well than some of the shite that used to come out the club shop. Like again, it's little things like that which are kind of her saving grace. Because it's not all been sunshine and roses on the park, and again, she's backed our managers to the hilt until she no longer can. I think is probably the best way of saying it.
No, I completely agree, and I think she does. I think she does have a decent legacy. I know a lot of folk won't agree, but I think she goes with my best wishes. I'm sure that probably you do as well. Yeah. But one of the other things you mentioned there was Tony Bloom. Now, I think this has got a lot of Hearts fans excited, because on the 25th of June, it was announced that Tony Bloom has got a £9.86 million investment in Hearts for a 29% stake in the club for non-voting shares. And I'm sure that you've probably seen all this by now. The Foundation of Hearts, they did a 90 Minutes with Derek McInnes about a week ago. They now have another one with Tony Bloom on the 3rd of August, which will sell out in record time, I think. But they are going to do this live stream. I think this for Hearts is fantastic, Adam, and I think most Hearts fans are excited. I mean, this is probably the most excited I've been for a long, long time about Hearts, probably since 2005. The squad we've got, now we've got Tony Bloom there. Again, what was your reaction when you first heard about Tony Bloom, and then obviously when it was officially announced?
Oh, we're running a lot. It's only a matter of time, Graeme. Yeah, no, it's really exciting. It's something different. It's probably just the way that modern football is going, really. I know that we're stressing that it's not a kind of multi-club ownership group, and we're not seen as like an affiliate to Brighton or an affiliate to Como or an affiliate to Union Saint-Gilloise. They're all separate entities, but the fact that Tony Bloom is involved is fantastic. I mean, you need only look at what he's done with Brighton overseas with the clubs I mentioned. I know that his background has essentially come from gambling, so that's interesting, and I can understand that people are perhaps skeptical, but there's absolutely no denying that Jamestown Analytics work because we've seen it in numerous case studies. The worry is it hasn't failed anywhere yet, and if I know a club where it's bound to fail, I know who that club is. But all joking aside, no, it's fantastic news, and it's exciting. I mean, the fact that he's said about breaking the duopoly and dominance of Scottish football that we've seen for so long is encouraging. Granted, he's not the first; he probably won't be the last. But it seems like he's actually going to give it a real good go. And he's spoken passionately about the club, even though we're not the team that he supports. He's put his money where his mouth is. So hopefully that can lead to some players that we otherwise might never see pull on Maroon. Hopefully it can lead to us getting decent fees for players, which is something that is probably my biggest mark against Anne Budge during her time at the club. And ultimately, we would just want to keep improving, keep investing, and keep bridging that gap. Because it'd be phenomenal. I mean, I can't even compute the thought of somebody other than Celtic or Rangers winning this league. But if it's us, then I honestly don't know what I'd do with myself. I really have no idea because it would just be unforeseen territory.
There'll be no more Perth to Paisley if we win that league. I tell you what, we'll be celebrating along with Mackay.
I think I'd end up in Perth or Paisley.
I mean, I can't wait, and I'm buzzing to see what he's going to say at this 90 minutes thing. I probably won't get a ticket because it'll be sold out, but the fact they're doing it live stream is even better.
Yeah,
but wait,
that's good of the club.
No, absolutely. I wish I'd done it with Derek McInnes one, but I probably shouldn't be surprised. But I was kind of a little bit surprised at the folk that were against it. It's like, are you serious? Like, this isn't Romanoff. We know what Tony Bloom's done with Brighton and Union Saint-Gilloise. We know this guy's good for what he says. I couldn't believe that there were folk actually against it.
Do you think it's purely down to Romanov that there were so many against it? Or kind of just kind of influence that, I don't know, you get our fans that are kind of caught up if it's not a PHM, if it's not somebody that like is cut open and bleeds maroon. I think they've got that little bit of skepticism. I don't know. I think there's, or maybe just the kind of thinking that we'd be Tony Bloom's afterthought, or I don't know. I don't know. I've never met anybody that's been dead against the whole Tony Bloom saga. So I'd be intrigued to get somebody's thoughts. If anybody knows of anyone, then be sure to get in touch. But I've not encountered anybody just yet.
I mean, it wasn't a lot. I always knew it would go through, but I couldn't believe the folks that were against it. It's like thinking, why would you be against something that is a good thing for Hearts? I just don't get that.
Yeah, I don't know. There has to have been like a previous experience, or I don't know, just his background, where he's come from, how he's acquired his money. If it seems dodgy to some people, I don't know. Need to ask them.
Well, you mentioned getting value for money, and that brings me on to you and McIver's hero that you call James Luke Penn. I mean, I'm generally gutted by this because I love him. So he is signed for AEK Athens in Greece on the 5th of July. He signed for £2 million plus add-ons. He had 46 games for Hearts, 7 assists and 2 goals, and he won Hearts Player of the Year last season. Signed from Livingston after 77 games for them. I had seen Penrith play before for Partick and Livingston, so I knew he was good. I didn't realise how good he was. And actually, 7 assists doesn't do him justice, because I think he's far better than that. But I know that you and McIver are massive fans of James Penrice. Player of the season last season, of course he was. How gutted are you that he's left?
Well, we're gutted that we've lost kind of one of our long-standing jokes from the start of the season. I mean, McIver's that much of a James Penrice fan that he called him Luke for some unknown, bizarre reason, and
Why
it just
did he
sort
do
of
that?
stuck. No idea. He seems to claim that he looks like a Luke. Yeah, I don't know. But we ended up just sticking with it. But Luke was undoubtedly one of our better performers last season. An incredible move for him. I mean, going from Blair Spittle and Musa Drama to Eric Lamela and Anthony Martial is one thing. Going from the usual pish and rain in Edinburgh, although granted we've got Greek weather at the minute, to roasting hot Athens. I mean, and obviously his pay, like, I struggle to see any cons, really. The disappointment is obviously AK Athens, because I'll never forgive them for that Champions League qualifier. But other than that, I can't really begrudge him at all. And again, we signed him on a free to replace Alex Cochrane, who I was equally as devastated that we lost. We've sold him for £2 million. It's fantastic business as far as we're concerned. And again, I've spoken of kind of my annoyance and disgust that Hearts haven't made as much money from players as, in my opinion, they should have over the years. So this is just what we're going to have to get used to, unfortunately. It sucks, but he's earned it, and we wish him all the best.
I mean, it's crazy to think that he plays 77 games for Livingston. He signs for Hearts, has one season, and then leaves for £2 million plus add-ons. I mean, that is incredible. But this is technically what Jameson is all about. It's about signing players for basically nothing and then selling for a profit if they're good enough. And James Penrice, last season, we all know, was horrendous for Hearts. Nobody was great. But James Penrice was a massive standout. Every week, you could see him doing something, whether it was creating a chance or defending really well. It was probably him and Benny, our two best players last season. But for one season, what a signing he was for absolutely nothing.
Undoubtedly agree, Ari, he and Benny. I also think Davy Martindale deserves a lot of credit, because when James Penrice signed for Hearts, Martindale got a wee bit of stick for saying that it was a coup for us. And I was one of those that was a wee bit sceptical, thinking, all right, Davy, I'm not really too sure where you're coming from. But now I see exactly what he means, because, yeah, I think he's got everything that you want in a modern-day fullback. He's just as aggressive offensively as he is solid defensively. It's just a real shame that obviously we've had, less than 50 games and he's off already. But that's, like I say, it's just what we're going to have to get used to. And I think it just sums up where football is now. Because it's gone from entertainment to a business, and that's no different at any level that you're at.
To be fair, as much as I'm gutted that Penrith is gone, I actually do think Harry Milne's a decent replacement. And a lot of Partick Thistle fans that I've spoke to have said that Harry Milne's actually just as good, if not better than Penrith, which is a pretty glowing endorsement, to be fair.
Yeah, I mean, we've had a small sample size of Harry Milne, a handful of appearances so far, if that. And I would agree with you. I mean, I think, if my memory serves, his debut was at Celtic Park, was it not?
It was. He played at left-sided centre-back.
Yeah, and by all means, like, didn't disgrace himself then. He's one as well where, upon him signing for the club, is appreciative of the stage that he's at, the club that he's at. Because it wasn't so long ago that he was playing part-time for Cove Rangers, I believe. So, yeah, we seem to be really blessed in the left-back area, because for so long, it was the right-back where we were decent and a hopeless left-back, and now it's probably the opposite. I'm hopeful that obviously one summer signing can sort us out at right-back, but even kind of from Stephen Kingsley, Alex Cochrane, James Penrice, and hopefully now Harry Milne, That's the last kind of 4 or 5 left backs that we've pretty much hit the nail on the head with exactly what we're looking for.
Yeah, well, good luck to James Luke Penrith. Hope he does very well. I'm sure he will. But one player that we have kept hold of, it was a bigger saga than what you ever see in EastEnders, is Lawrence Shankland. It was the story that would not go away over the summer. Would he sign? Would he not? There was rumours he was going to leave. And finally, on the 3rd of July, Lawrence Shankland signed a 3-year deal at Hearts. 68 goals in 137 games. He has stayed as the captain. I mean, this was something that was just going on for, it felt like months, to be honest, Adam. But Lawrence Shankland, I was going to say, Derek McInnes has been talking about Shankland for weeks and weeks and weeks. He wanted him to stay. He talked to him numerous times. Finally, Lawrence Shankland stayed. How are you feeling about Lawrence Shankland's situation? And are you delighted that he's staying?
Yes, I am. I'm equally as pleased and surprised. In regards to the saga, just felt like it was months, years of just uncertainty. I mean, Keith Jackson will be absolutely devastated because he told us all that it was a certainty to sign for Rangers. Subsequently has not. Yeah, I'm astonished. I'm a big fan as well of him essentially sacking off the hot weather training camp. Wait until after that's basically done to then sign. But that being said, I think our major criticism of Lawrence Shankland was the condition that he turned up in after the summer last season. He's been putting the hard yards in this summer, going by his Instagram, and kind of the wee snippets that we've seen of him. A massive asset to the football club. I mean, basically single-handedly guided us to third place the season before last.
Yep.
Granted, didn't have that same effect last season. Our form and his coincided with one another. We weren't as strong as the previous season. But I'm really pleased because he just scores goals. It really is that simple. He's not just an out-and-out goal scorer. I think his overall play is much better than that. But you said it there. The statistics speak for themselves. His record's a joke. And considering the numerous years of numpties I watched play up front for Hearts, I hadn't experienced a 30-goal season striker before he came, which is meant. I mean, I'm 27. Like, that is wild. We had gone far too long without a prolific goal scorer. We've got one. We've somehow managed to keep a hold of one. And for that, I am absolutely delighted, as I'm sure you are.
Christ, 27. I feel so fucking old, man. No, I'm delighted. I've said that numerous times. I've followed Hearts for about 38 years, and I haven't seen as good a striker since John Robertson. Yes, we all know that last season was really poor, but he still ended up with 19 goal contributions. And the fact that a lot of games have played a lot deeper, I saw so many Hearts fans over the course of the last few weeks and months say, oh, he's not interested, doesn't want to be here, his body language is terrible. I don't really think I ever got that. I just think it was a case of, you mentioned it there, he's carried us for pretty much 2 seasons. 28 in his first season, 31 the season before that. I was always worried that if there was going to be a drop-off, we had nobody else really to replace him. You're relying on one guy, and it's a lot of pressure for him to carry on his shoulders. I just think last season, players go through this. Every player goes through a dip, and unfortunately he did. There were times last season that was critical. I thought he was very poor, but keeping him for me is absolutely massive because even with the signings that we've made, even bringing Derek McInnes in, there is absolutely no doubt in my mind that Lawrence Shankland is still by far our best player.
I don't disagree with any of that. I think I am surprised that he's kept a hold of the armband because, again, we speak about that kind of pressure element there. That's even more additional pressure that I think he could do without, to be honest. I think there were times where kind of his conduct was a bit strange. I seem to remember a derby, he essentially booted a ball high into the Gorgie stand in frustration. And I'm thinking, what are you doing? Like, this, that is not befitting of a captain of Hearts. But I think ultimately, I also think that Derek McInnes's appointment is kind of a sneaky factor here, because I think had Hearts gone for somebody else, we maybe would have said goodbye to Lawrence Shankland, and it's abundantly clear just how much Derek McInnes wanted him to stay, as you rightly said at the start, Graeme. And now we've seen him put pen to paper. I'm going to be honest, in the age of social media content, it was a bit of an underwhelming announcement video, but you can only do basically what we could out in Spain. It was quite funny, but just in terms of how big a moment that is, in terms of the kind of enormity of the news, a wee bit underwhelming. But listen, he was underwhelming last season. Let's just put that all behind us now and hope that he can be fit and firing right from the very off. Because boy, do we need it after a hopeless campaign last year.
Do you know who I felt sorry for this summer? It's the Hearts admin. Because every time they posted something, underneath every single comment was, "Where the fuck is Shankland? Where's Shankland?" It was every single day. And I was like, that Hearts admin guy is going to have to go through some stuff here. It's like, it's not my fault. I can't do anything about it.
I know that Hearts admin really should have picked like a Spartans or an Edinburgh City, or like when I was an admin, it was for clubs at a much lower level, and you don't get nearly the same harassment. So yeah, maybe he'll get some time off just as the season's starting, and then could come back. But yeah, I agree with you. I mean, regardless of what we put out, it was like the museum's closed. Where is Shankland? This is an outrage. Get him signed. It's like, give the guy a break. Jesus.
It was every single time they posted something, there was just a comment about Shanks. So it's like, leave the poor guy alone. He doesn't get anything.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I very much doubt it was him that was selling the supposed stories to Keith Jackson or whoever. Again, like, honestly, I'm so pleased that he signed just for him.
Do you know what I love as well? And I know it's a small thing, but when you saw him going out the training camp in Spain, every single player was welcoming him back. And I quite like that. It kind of shows that he is highly regarded amongst the players. And Derek McInnes said that as well. You mentioned about the captaincy there. I've heard a few folks saying that maybe it was taken off him. I mean, if it wasn't going to be Shankland, obviously Craig Gordon's injured just now, probably won't even be fit for his own testimonial. If it wasn't going to be Shankland, who would you have given it to?
That's a good point. I thought that Frankie Kent was one that I would have the season before last, but again, last season was kind of in and out. I love Benny Beningame to bits.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's befitting of a captaincy, maybe with some of the stuff that he says kind of after games. And I'll be honest, I think Benny Beningame is probably our best footballer, all told. People love Cammy Devlin's desire, but does that warrant him getting the armband? Not even sure he's going to be a guaranteed starter every week, so question marks around that. Yeah, I don't know. It's up for debate, certainly. Maybe a centre half or two. To me, it should be somebody that's in kind of the back four, but I don't know. Maybe that's just me being me.
Well, let's talk about the new signings because we've made quite a few. We're doing business early. We've signed 6 players. So we've signed Norwegian right back Christian Borchgrevink. I think I've got that right. Greek
I was impressive, mate.
Kesridas. We've signed Irish midfielder Ocean McEntee, Portuguese striker Clyde Braga, but can also play wide as well. Scottish centre back Stuart Finlay, and we have also re-signed Elton Kabangu on a 3-year deal. We have 2 more to come, because there are 2 players at Tynecastle at the moment, I believe. One of them is Burkina Faso winger who can also play up front, Pierre Landry Kabore, and the other one is an Albanian winger, Saba Kerjota, which will take it up to 8. I talked about it earlier, Adam, about the fact to need to bring pace and wide players to that team. We're doing that. Is there one of those players right now that we've signed that you are most looking forward to seeing? Because at the moment, the one I'm looking at, and the one that's got a lot of credit from Joel Sked in that the last couple of games,
is Claudio Braga. Yeah, he's the one that's got my plums pumping, Graeme. I look at it and I think I've only heard of Stuart Finlay. We've seen what Elton Kabangu can do, but the rest are just unknowns. And sometimes ignorance is bliss. So that's what we're going for. I'm not going to kid on and tell you the intricacies about each and every one of them's career because, frankly, I don't know. From what I have heard, Claudio Braga seems a real prospect, and aside from the fact that he's absolutely gorgeous, I would love to see him. I would love to see him perform for Hearts. So, yeah, I don't really know what to say because I haven't seen the vast majority of these players play. And I said it earlier on. Actions speak louder than words, so they could surprise me. Hopefully, it's in an optimistic sense rather than just how poor they are. But yeah, I'm certainly not writing anybody off before a ball's been kicked yet.
God, well, honest, I wasn't expecting somebody to say Claudio Braga's gorgeous, but there you go.
I don't play for that team whatsoever, but he's stunning. He's making me question, my feelings. He looks fantastic, and even the track jacket in which he was announced, I'm thinking, yeah, he's got a little je ne sais quoi. Yeah, he's got something.
Well, Joel Sked was at a couple of the pre-season games, and he was raving about Claudio Braga. But I posted on TikTok a few days ago about who I think might be the most underrated player this season. And I've gone for Ocean McEntee. Now, he's
my God, you sound like Daniel McIver. Jesus, he was waxing lyrical about him as well.
I know, I'll probably be wrong, but he's 6'3". But what I like the fact that, according to Joel Sked, he's not someone that just kind of sits and holds. He wants to get forward and break the lines, which I don't think we've got a lot of from midfield, because let's be honest, Benny doesn't do that. Devlin doesn't really do that. The one I want to see coming on a game is Nunoff. Whether he says, I don't know.
I think he's got the potential to do that. I agree with you, Ari, the others. But yeah, I also think the versatility as well, because seemingly he can play centre half or he can fill in at right back if need be, box to box. Yeah, just every squad kind of needs these utility players, don't they? I mean, Michael Smith's probably the one that I can think off the top of my head recently. But yeah, by all accounts, seems quite a coup for us. Walsall fans seem pretty gutted that he's away, so that's usually a good sign. Yeah, I'm looking at it differently because previously I'd be one of them that are like, right, okay, so we've signed 6, so going by the law of averages, probably 4 are decent, and there's going to be 2 that are fairly hopeless. But from what I've heard in the media and on various outlets, it seems like there's none that are hopeless thus far. So that's very encouraging. I hope that's the case come, the competitive action and midway through the season, we're not kind of forcing anybody out the door already.
I know that YouTube clips only show you highlights, but having watched the highlights of Pierre Landry Cabore, this guy excites me. Now, I know it's Estonian League, it's not particularly great, but his goal scoring is really good. He can play up front, he can play out wide. I'm quite excited by this guy. I know I shouldn't be, but I am.
I was going to say, I mean, my answer to that is, did you watch the compilation that Donny Savdiai was unfurled with? I mean, oh my!
He's for that, mate. Come on.
We built him to be, the Kosovan Kaka, man. It seems to have a decent pedigree. I'll be honest, no idea if the Estonian league is. I don't know where it ranks in terms of European divisions, but as you say, can't look past the numbers. So and again, I'm one of them that if you're a goal scorer, you're a goal scorer. I think what's the hardest thing in the game to do is probably put the ball in the onion bag. So we've got somebody that can do that from potentially a wide area. The more the merrier, I say, because again, as you kind of alluded to, we've been relying on Lauren Shanklin for 2 or 3 seasons. It'd be nice to have other people chip in, particularly in the wide areas when we've not really seen that for a good wee while.
Well, that's it. Derek McInnes has come in and identified the fact we need pace and width that we've spoken about for I don't know how long, and we've finally sorted that.
Yeah, exactly. And if they've got an eye for goal as well and a bit of creative flair and an eye for a pass, then we're on to a winner. That could surely only be a remedy for winning football matches, which is what we're here for.
We'll not see many 0-0 draws with Hearts. That might not be goals for us, but I'll tell you what, you're guaranteed goals watching Hearts this season. But one thing I do want to touch on is the right back position. We signed Christian Borch-Grevink. Now, I have heard and seen a lot of criticism for Adam Forrester, which I don't really agree with. I think he got thrown into a difficult position. Is there games that he's not played well? Yes, of course there is, but he's a young laddie. I think some of the abuse that he gets is, for me, a little bit uncalled for. Now, I do think Borch-Grevink will start quite a lot of games, but I have no issue with Forrester as a backup, personally. I don't know what you think about
that. I mean, I think he's decent. I think we can do probably better. I think there's probably a loan spell out there for him somewhere. At maybe a championship club or I don't know, upper end League One. I think he's okay. I do agree with you. I think the abuse was far too much, because it's never easy to come in to any first team from a youth team, but particularly when Hearts were really struggling at the time. I think he's fine. I think we could do better, but I'm not one of these that's kind of discarding him. I think there could be a future for Adam Forrester potentially. I just believe that maybe a season of first team football would probably be for his and ultimately our down the line benefit.
Well, the signings that we've made, where do you think that leaves guys like Jan Dander and Blair Spittle? Do you see them getting much game time?
It's a tricky one because I see both scored against East Kilbride in our last friendly. But prior to that, I would have probably said that if one was more likely to leave, I would have believed it be Jan Dander, just because Blair Spittle featured for us more prominently last year. Granted, he had that relationship with James Luke Penrice that is now obviously no longer going to be continued down Gorgie Way. And I think just the age that Blair Spittle's at, the duration of the deal, I don't think he's somebody that we're going to necessarily get money for. Jan Dander, we might from an English lower league club. But I don't know. I think they might have a part to play. I think Alan Forrest is also probably in that same periphery. Just need to wait and see how it all unfolds, to be honest, because like I say, they've featured in pre-season, they've scored in pre-season, so they may well end up kind of featuring more than perhaps you, me, or anybody else thinks.
I think Alan Forrest starts tomorrow. So let's get to that, because tomorrow Hearts have their first competitive game, Premier Sports Cup against Dunfermline at Tynecastle, 5:15 kickoff. We then go to Hamilton on Tuesday. We then have another away game against Stirling Albion, and we finish at Tynecastle against Dumbarton. Now, I know that folk don't like Premier Sports Cup, which is fine, but I think winning these games builds momentum. You would surely have to think, Adam, we've been burned with this before, but you'd surely have to think this should be 4 wins out of 4. If it's not, there's a problem.
I mean, the ghosts of Peterhead and the ghosts of kind of Wraith Rovers at Bayview and wherever else, like East Fife, all these teams, they're kind of ringing on in the background. But yes, given our optimism, given everybody's kind of united confidence and belief, I would say, I mean, it's going to look pretty embarrassing if we don't end up with 12 points out of 12. I think you're spot on with what you say with regards to momentum. I think you need only look at Aberdeen last year. They essentially used this as their pre-season and went on that ridiculous run where I think they were unbeaten for, 11 Scottish Premiership games? And granted, the wheels fell off and then they came back on again just toward the end of the season. But to me, I'm with you. I like the order because Dunfermline are going to prove our trickiest. That's just by league standing, you would assume. We're up against a manager that doesn't like us very much, that we don't like very much. And ultimately, there's wrongs to be righted here with our last meeting against Dunfermline in this particular competition at this particular venue. So that would be nice. It'd be nice to get off to a winning start. I'm confident we will get off to a winning start and then win all those 4 games, which then ultimately should breed confidence and anticipation heading into the Scottish Premiership season. That's the big aim. That's the big hope.
How would you like Hearts to line up tomorrow?
What, in terms of formation or personnel, or what do you want?
Both formation and personnel. What's your team for tomorrow?
I would like to see a bog standard 4-4-2, probably. I think the trouble is I don't know who's going to start in goals, because we have about 40 goalkeepers and seemingly all of them are injured. Is it going to be Ryan Fulton tomorrow?
I think it's Xander Clark.
I mean, ideally it would be Xander Clark for me anyway, but going by what you read and hear, I don't know. We'll go with Xander Clark then. Left back will obviously be Harry Milne because James Luke Penrice is away. Centre half, Jamie McCart is out. Stuart Finlay, I believe, is cup tied / suspended. I only know that through my co-host because I didn't know that when we recorded our episode. So what will it be? Centre halves, Halkett and Kent, probably. Right back, hopefully it'll be Christian. I dare not say his name at risk of butchering it. You have, and you've done it incredibly impressively. Alan Forrest, you think he'll start? I've seen numerous other Jambos suggest the same. I think it'll be Kizaridis and Cabango on the flanks. I think it'll be Benny Beningame and Ocean McEntee in the middle of the park, and a front pairing of Claudio Braga and Lawrence Shankland. That's what I'm going with.
That sounds fair.
You?
I've pretty much gone with exactly the same team. The only change that I've got is I just think because he's not signed the other two wingers yet, and because I don't really see Musa Drami starting or Kenny Vargas, no. I just think he'll go with Alan Forrest. I think he'll go with that experience. I think it'll be Forrest on the right, Kizaridis on the left. But apart from that, pretty much the same team.
No place for Cabango for you then?
I would have him on the bench.
Okay.
The one thing I will say, though, is what I like is the fact that I do believe, and a lot of folk have said this, even with the signings that we've made, I actually do believe that Wilson will get a lot of game time this season. He probably played a lot more than folk thought he would last season because they had to, with nothing else. But I think Derek McInnes seems to really like him, and he's been looking pretty sharp in training. I would not be surprised if Wilson did start tomorrow.
No, I think even as we're discussing Elton Cabango, we seem to have an array of options in offensive areas, and we seem to keep adding to it, which is great. It's a nice headache to have. I would also have no qualms if the wee man were to feature right from the start tomorrow. Bizarrely, I think I'd be happy with any 11 that you could chuck out tomorrow. Really,
when have we ever said that about a Hearts team recently?
I know.
Every 11 comes on that back.
You can tell we've not kicked a ball yet in this competitive campaign. Yeah. By October, we'll have most of them sold.
Oh, absolutely. They'll all be terrible. McInnes will be out of a job by then. What's your score prediction tomorrow?
Fancy us by a couple of goals, whether it's a clean sheet or not. I will say, I'm tempted to go 2-0, but I'll go 3-1. Some entertainment. Why not?
I'm going 3-0.
3-0. Nice.
In terms of the league, before we finish up, in terms of the league, we've got our first 5 games lined up. We've got Aberdeen at home, first game, Monday, August the 4th. It's live on Sky. Then we're away to Dundee United. Home to Motherwell, away to Livingston, and then away to Rangers. It's a difficult start, but I spoke about a minute ago about Premier Sports Cup and getting momentum. I think it's important to get momentum going at the Aberdeen game. Now, Aberdeen's record at Tynecastle is not great. Ours at Pittodrie is not great either. Home form would tend to go towards Hearts for this. But how are you feeling about those first 5 games?
Derek McInnes as well, wanting to get one over his former club.
Mm-hmm.
I think it could have been better. I equally think it could have been worse. Listen, I'm trying not to read too much into the fixtures because ultimately, if it was my Scottish Premiership and my division, you'd play everybody home and away an equal amount of times. Obviously, up here, it's slightly different, what with the 33 games and the split nonsense that I just cannot get on board with. I think the home fixtures are winnable. I think our away ones are that bit trickier, but again, it's really the Rangers one, isn't it? That's the trickiest one because our record against Rangers, all told, is horrendous and was a real annoyance, particularly last season, because everybody beat Rangers. But I think we can collect a healthy points total out of that. If I'm being honest, it's a tricky quintet, but I think it's one that we can come out of, particularly if we get off to a good start, as we both anticipate in the Premier Sports Cup, like you say. I think it's one that we could come out of relatively unscathed. That would be a massive bonus.
I have gone for 10 points out of 15.
Don't disagree. So what's that? Was it 3 home wins, a draw, probably away at Motherwell, and then defeat at Rangers? Is that what you're thinking?
Beating Aberdeen. I've got a draw against Dundee United. Then that'll be difficult. I've got a home win against Motherwell, a win against Livingston, and probably nothing against Rangers. I really hope I'm wrong. I hope we get 15. But I just think that 10 out of 15 isn't a bad start.
I'd be delighted with 13. I'd be ecstatic with 15. But yeah, I agreed. Double figures should be the aim. I think that's realistic. Hopefully.
Finally, mate, what are your expectations for Hearts this season?
3rd place and trips to Hampden. Simple as that, really.
Does it have to be a trip to Hampden, or does it have to be a cup win?
I think it's circumstantial. I think we should be aiming for both semi-finals at least. But again, it depends on draws, and if we end up in Glasgow prior to that, it's obviously a heck of a lot trickier. But equally, if we come out the tie in Glasgow and we're through to the next round, then we're licking our lips at the thought of us actually lifting a trophy, which is long overdue. I don't know. It's all dependent on kind of external factors, isn't it? Factors that we've not yet seen. But I think I'd like to see us qualify for Europe by any manner of means. I think that's where I hate saying should be, because we've still got to go and earn it, but we've had that taster of it the last couple of seasons. We haven't this. It'd be nice to immediately get back there.
I agree with all that. And one thing I didn't mention actually about signings, the one that we haven't got over the line yet, is Islam Chesnikov, because it looks like he's not going to be here in the summer because his club Tobol do not want to let him go, understandably so. They're 6 points off the top with 2 games in hand, and he is their best player. But he has signed a pre-contract in January. But again, I don't know why I keep doing this to myself, getting excited, but this guy generally looks an absolutely cracking player.
Feel for him, because there's no real break, what with his current season ending and then him being midway through his season at Hearts. That being said, I don't think Kazakhstan will qualify for the World Cup, so he'll get a well-earned break in the summer. But yeah, no, he does. He's one that, again, I think fans are frustrated that we haven't quite pushed the boat out to sign yet. Maybe that's part of the reason why the club have then turned to alternatives in the wide areas. But yeah, I mean, we can't. Again, I can't judge these players having not seen them play competitive football yet. So I'm reserving my judgment so far. Well, it just remains for me. We are out of time now. Thank you very much to Adam for joining me. Adam, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much, mate. No worries, Graeme. Thank you very much for having me on. We're going to win the lot. Absolutely. Please, if you haven't already, please go and subscribe to Perth to Paisley, and please go and give Adam and Daniel a follow. Adam, where can folk find yourself, Perth to Paisley, and Daniel? So you can find Perth to Paisley on all the socials at Perth to Paisley. Nice and simple. I'm on all the socials at Kendo's Column. And if you go on Perth to Paisley, you'll find McIver's links. I think he's got various usernames for various platforms. But yeah, you can access his stuff there, because I do shout him out from time to time. Yeah, so if you haven't already subscribed, go and subscribe. Let's get them to over 500, because they are honestly top guys. They're brilliant guys. Go and give them a follow. Thank you to Adam for joining me, and come on the Jambos!